The In This League Podcast Network.
IDP Sharks, Lord of the Void. That's what we see on the name here. It's our boy Gary Davenport in the house. Gary, I would say like, hey, what should we promote? You're everywhere. You're literally everywhere, Gary.
Yeah, I get around a little bit.
Just a little bit. Well said. Well said. Very short and sweet there. Gary Davenport on Twitter at IDPSHARKS. And no joke, like literally stuff over all of the places. And just as a matter of fact, with our boy Bogman right here, you guys doing the IDP podcast. We might have an IDP question coming up here a little bit later in the show too, as far as our voicemails, Boggs. But I feel like I'm intruding on your guys' safe space together.
Yeah, who is this third wheel? We don't know this guy at all. So yeah, if you guys don't play IDP or are new to it, Gary and I do the individual defensive podcast also on the In This League Podcast Network. So please check that out. Check that out if you would. We talk about everything that happened from the past week, plus some pickups. We go into weird snap percentages and all that good stuff as well. So please check it out if you would.
And Gary, Browns fan too. So Browns and Steelers coming together finally in one way?
No, not really.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we are a little.
I do. Gotcha.
We are a little back and forth on that, but Gary has the upper hand at this point. So don't like that.
Yeah, maybe even into this week. All right, well, let's get into the stuff and things here. Gary, what positive or negative change with Justin Fields taking over at quarterback for Chicago, at least for this week, do you think we should or would expect to see in guys like Allen Robinson, David Montgomery, the players around Justin Fields? Do you see positives or negatives, or does anybody jump out to you?
I don't know that it's going to change a whole lot for David Montgomery. He might see even a little bit more work. Maybe they'll lean on the run a little bit more. I'd say you downgrade Allen Robinson slightly, but he's still a guy you're going to be starting regardless. And, it'll be interesting to see how much Fields looks to a guy like Darnell Mooney. I mean, maybe does his target share go up a little bit? It's not something we're going to know with Justin Fields until we see how he looks to spread the ball around. But it's going to be interesting. And that Chicago offense should be, if the first 2 weeks of the season are any indication, they should have some success this weekend because the Cleveland defense has not played well the first 2 weeks of the year.
Yeah, and I almost forgot, like, as asking the question, it's against Cleveland as well. I think it's a tough matchup. It's a tough one defensively. But let me know what you think about this. I said this earlier in the show to Boggs. I wonder if they would liken it to similar what Philadelphia is doing. I'm a 49ers fan and just watching Philly pretty heavily, how Philly treats Jalen Hurts, where it was not a lot of crazy deep stuff. It's really target your number one, how they were trying to do in Devontae Smith. And then you would even have certain series where it was literally just 5 straight runs by Jalen Hurts. Like, do you think they will change the offense a little bit in favor of Fields, or do you think it's going to look how it's been?
Absolutely. I would hope they would change the offense a little bit.
Well, it is Nagy.
Yeah, that's true. To accentuate what he does well. And like I said, I think they'll lean a little bit more on David Montgomery. I will say, I mean, in Philadelphia, they throw a lot to their number one wide receiver because there's behind him. No offense to Jalen Reagor. And the Bears have at least a little bit better number 2 receiver in Mooney, but it's going to be, I'm personally, because not only am I a Browns fan, I'm also an Ohio State fan. So it's going to be interesting for me and a little bit of a conflict to watch Justin Fields make his pro debut against my team.
That was, Gary, I had that when Colt McCoy made his pro debut against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So it was the same thing. Hopefully,
same talent level too, huh, there, Bugs?
Hopefully the Bears don't ruin Justin Fields like the Browns did Colt McCoy. So, and also James Harrison ruined him. But that is, I figured you would have a little more confidence at being the Ohio State fan in Justin Fields. Are you not? How many shares do you have of Justin Fields, Gary?
I think I have a couple dynasty shares, but that's about it because people were so high and even in redrafts on Justin Fields and Trey Lance this summer that they were just coming off the board before I was comfortable. There's going to be some growing pains with Justin Fields, I think. And I think we saw some of that last week against Cincinnati. There were a couple bad decisions with the football. But I think the Bears have, in the long term, a lot better chance of winning football games with Justin Fields under center than they did with Andy Dalton's corpse. So,
what's your feel on? Let's go to the Niners, the Welsh's team here, and talk about the backfield there. What is your play as far as the Niners backfield goes? Because they're all hurt right now, but they have a great matchup this week against Green Bay, who's just getting no push up front. We saw Swift and Williams both able to produce some points against this Green Bay front. They are putting nothing on paper as far as pressuring the quarterback right now. They have 0 tackles for loss. I think they have a 0% hurry, rate. So the Niners backfield, whoever is in there, should be great. Who is it for this week, and who do you like moving forward in that Niners backfield, Gary?
Oh, it's probably Elijah Mitchell for both, at least until I see differently. And that's not to say that we won't, because it's the San Francisco backfield. So, of course, it changes every 2 weeks. I don't know if we're going to see Trey Sermon get cleared from the concussion protocol in time to play this week. Had you asked me in August, I'd have said, at some point, Trey Sermon's going to take over for Raheem Mostert. He's going to take the ball and run with it. Everything's going to be awesome. But that hasn't been the case. Apparently, he wasn't as good in camp as we were led to believe. And, then he goes out there on his first professional carry and gets his block knocked off. So.
I lost my mind watching it because he hit a hole. He hit the hole. He hit it right. I mean, he showed his burst. He absolutely burst through the hole. It was a nice big one. He was going 8 yards. He gets tripped up and he fell on his goddamn face and he immediately fumbled the ball. And I look at that and I go, this is a guy that's not inspiring any offense anytime soon. And from day one, I've been saying, at least from, when Mostert went out, not like Bogman from day one, but as soon as you saw Eli Mitchell, I was like, this guy looks like a professional back. This looks like an NFL back who's making the right decisions. And they treated him such in game 2 with Sermon active, concussions, fumbles, and all of his nonsense. I just don't see how it's not Eli Mitchell when healthy. That's the only thing that puts into question. So like if he were somehow inactive, then I think, I don't even really know where you go. There's no Hasty. If Sermon's active and Eli's not, okay, there's a question. But I believe Eli will be good to go. Is there anybody else in any circumstance? Like if Eli's out and Sermon's active, do you like Sermon? If they're all, if Eli and Sermon somehow didn't play and you had, they picked up Patrick and they got Trenton Cannon, is there anybody you like, or is it kind of an avoid?
I've got a few shares of Sermon. If Mitchell was out and he was active, it would feel like a desperation play to me. Even with, like you said, the Packers are not playing well defensively. Mitchell's the only guy I have any real faith in right now. There are a couple deep leagues where I would probably wind up starting Sermon, but that's only because I don't have anything else, and it beats, starting Quintez Cephas.
It actually is a desperation play. I feel like I'd rather go with Cephas, to be honest with you. But what's funny is I went over just to see on PFF who the highest rated back is. And on his one snap, Trey Sermon is the highest rated back according to PFF. I don't know how. I mean,
dude. We had our listener, Zito, hit me with it. He goes, hey, fun stat for the next pod. Trey Sermon leads all rookies with 8 yards per carry, and the 49ers average plus 23 yards per play when Sermon touches the ball. And I just was like, I'm going to block you.
Here's the other thing is that Jermichael Hasty's pass blocking number on PFF is 2. I've never seen a number lower than like 20, and his is 2. I've never seen a 2 before in my life on pass blocking. I think he has 4 pass blocking snaps, so it's not like he has a lot of good run. But Eli Mitchell, 29.2 is also really bad. But Eli Mitchell right now, as far as guys that have taken more than 1 snap, does rank higher than Jermichael Hasty by 0.1. So it's all kind of jumbled up back there. My other question before we get to some of these plays here, Gary, is who has been so unimpressive to you so far that they have moved from starters to you down to non-starters? Is there anyone you can kind of describe in that group?
At quarterback, Ryan Tannehill is out for me until I see something. And I don't think we're going to see it this week because in 2 starts last year against the Colts, I think he threw for about 350 yards combined and 2 touchdowns. So I don't expect that this is going to be a breakout spot for him. And I'm going to be starting him in a couple leagues this week because I don't have a choice. But, man, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is just – it's milk carton time. He's 45th, 48th, something like that in fantasy points among running backs after 2 weeks. And I know it's only been 2 weeks, but still, this is a guy that was drafted as a high-end RB2. He's killing.
It just doesn't make a lot of sense. Welsh mentioned it earlier in the show that the two best offenses in the NFL, Tampa Bay and Kansas City, and neither one of them could get a running back going.
Yeah, it's also like a blueprint for other teams, showing how how much you don't need it if you don't have it, and how you can adjust. I mean, there's literally blueprint on film with the best offenses for other teams to look and say, well, if we can't establish the run, everybody else is able to do it right now. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a disaster. His rushing prop this week is like 52 yards. And I don't even know how you could possibly think he's 100% hit the under in both those games. And it doesn't look good. When the offense runs, it does not look like it's changed. I legitimately think you see more Darrell Williams and you could see some more Jerick McKinnon this week. I agree.
I kind of hope so, to be honest, because in most of the leagues where I have Edwards-Helaire, I cuff Darrell Williams to him. So, I mean, if it means I can get some kind of production out of one of those running back spots, hell yeah, put Darrell Williams in there. That's where I'm at. Clyde, we're voting you off the island. You are the weakest link. Goodbye.
I agree. I don't agree with the Tannehill one as much. The back into the year one makes a lot of sense. I think it's going to turn around. But Bogman, what is your face about? Why do you hate this one?
I hate the Clyde Edwards hate.
I hate the hate.
I hate the hate, but I also hate Clyde Edwards-Helaire right now because it's making me look like a dick. I just hate the whole situation. It's stupid. Like, you have the best offense on the planet. Get this back a little more involved so you can have those amazing wide receivers. Hardman can burn everyone. We know will burn everyone, even if they've got three guys on him. It doesn't matter. So, if you get him involved a little bit more, I think you're gonna see a better version of him, and they just refuse to do it. It's still like 10 to 14 touches a game. He needs to be involved just a little more. I think it's gonna make everything better if he can.
I think they're gonna go the opposite way. I think you might see more end rounds on Tyreek Hill. You see a little bit of McKinnon. Darrell Williams.
They gotta go one way or the other
to be the goal line guy, but they don't have to. They've actually continuously not gone one way or the other. We keep wanting them to go all in with Helaire, and they keep not doing it, and they keep winning games.
They just lost, and they played who they play week one, and that was a tougher game than anticipated. So, and the defense looks bad. Like, you need to run the ball more to keep that crappy defense on the sideline.
You would think they would want to try to run the ball because the Chargers showed this last week against Dallas. Their run defense is not especially good. Dallas gashed them for what, 190, 200 yards on the ground?
Yeah. Exactly.
Gary,
Pollard and Zeke were both great. So,
Gary, did you have any others that had changed?
Those are the only two that I can really think of off the top. I would say Brandon Ayuk, but I mean, he's so far off he just hasn't done anything. So I don't even know if he's just gone. He just vanished. He just evaporated.
And you hate to make because we all know, like, as longtime fantasy people, like, you got to be careful about your immediate overreactions.
As soon as you write them off, they'll put up a 100-yard game. That's just the way it works.
And Ayuk's got the talent to do it. Clyde Edwards-Helaire has the talent to do it, but in both the situations, ironically, it does not seem like the team has the trust in to do it and the patience to do it. Shanahan doesn't have the patience. They like Sherfield's making plays. Juwan Jennings, touchdown, first NFL catch. Like, they've got guys. The 49ers still have not even fully implemented George Kittle into this offense. Debo leads the league in receiving yards. Like, what is the need? As I've said a million times, Ayuk will have a breakout player too. He's just not trustworthy. He's not startable. I mean, I'd argue you could cut him for Quintez Cephas right now. Anybody?
I mean, it's not the craziest move I've ever heard. I'll say Lions that. I wouldn't do it, but
Cephas is an insane talent. Every time he's one of those sticky hand dudes. Anytime the ball gets near him, there's a potential for him to catch it. I think he's slowly getting more confidence build up in that offense to be a number one.
He had a bad injury in college. He was amazing up until his, I think it was an ankle injury. He had a bad injury in college. So he came in a little bit, he ran slow in the combine and all that stuff, but he's a guy that, like, the further away he gets from this injury, the better and better he looks. So
the first 2 weeks, he has made a jaw-dropping play both games in the first 2 weeks, and he's going to keep doing it. I mean, Gary, is that insane? I know it's tough to do it, but Ayuk or Cephas?
At this point, I'd have to go Cephas. I mean, he's the guy that's actually doing something. Although Tyrell Williams will be back at some point, and
not this week. He's out this week.
once Tyrell Williams returns, watch out.
Yep, watch out.
I mean, I've never heard a more sarcastic comment from Gary in my life, by the way.
Let's go to some week 3 plays here. We got quarterback, running back, wide receiver. Bob Harris did pretty good last week. He outed or busted us on our 4 and 4s. He was 5 and 3 as far as like how judging if the guys were successful. So here's the easy slam dunk one. It's your top quarterback, a quarterback 1 of 1s for the week. You can play it to the Fantasy Pros ranking. You can play it to who your top guy is. This is a hard one to miss unless they big time fail. So Boggs, we'll go first. We'll let Gary see how it plays. This is the slam dunk of all the ones we do here. Who is your top quarterback? And I just want to tell you the number 1 quarterback on Fantasy Pros for this week is Kyler Murray. So where do you go QB1?
That's because he's the number 1 quarterback of the week because he's playing Jacksonville and he's been amazing. So for me, it's fairly simple. Kyler Murray's on a roll. He plays one of the worst defenses in the NFL. Got to be Kyler Murray.
Okay. I agree. It is Kyler Murray. If I want to go off book just a tiny bit, I'm going to go back to the well with Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson, Minnesota's pass defense is giving up the yards. It's maybe their favorite thing to do. And Russ has been slinging the ball. I don't see any need for them to try to get back to establishing any run. They've been a bottom 10 or 12 passing defense, I believe Minnesota has. Or I'm looking at rushing yards. They're at the bottom. And Minnesota is, 26 in passing yards so far this year. And Russ has looked good slinging the ball. So if you are looking for an outside version of Kyler, I'm going to say Russ this week. What about you, Gary?
Those would literally, Kyler Murray would be my guy, but if there was another one I would take, it would be Russell Wilson.
Love it.
Well, you figure that Minnesota-Seattle game has a lot of shootout potential. Yeah. I mean, whereas Arizona should handle Jacksonville fairly easily, I think we could see that Seattle-Minnesota game is going to look a lot like the Arizona-Minnesota game from last week.
I totally agree with you on that. There's like a prop out. It's like 3.5 passing and or rushing touchdowns for Kyler. And it's like, I buy it. It's just, they just might get out too early, and then they might have to be running the ball a little bit with Jacksonville. Jacksonville is just atrocious. So let's now flip it around. We do snake style here, Gary. So you get to go first. This one is your sleeper QB1 for the week. So it's a quarterback that is not seen as a QB1. So like a top 12 quarterback, but someone that is going to slide in and play QB1 style this week. Who do you got?
Okay, I want to say Kirk Cousins, but I'm going to go under the assumption that he is considered kind of a low-end QB1 because, like I said, that Seattle game has shootout potential.
No, that's totally acceptable. But if you have another one, you want to do it. I mean, he's not even on Fantasy Pros QB12 this week, a top QB12, and he is not a normal QB1, so that is more than allowed.
Then that's my guy. I'll go Kirk Cousins against the Seattle Seahawks. We saw that Seattle secondary was not good last year. It's not good this year. We saw Cousins put through, 3 touchdown passes last week against Arizona. Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen. That game's going to be, I think the over-under is 50-something. I wouldn't be surprised if we see 65 points scored in that game.
Bashad Breeland is Gary's favorite player to watch, too. Because he gets torched every time, and he's getting a bunch of tackles. He's fun to watch.
Who was the other guy you were going to say, just real quick?
Actually, Justin Fields. I think he could sneak in that rushing of those rushing yards. It's the same reason Jalen Hurts is a top 5 quarterback in a lot of scoring systems right now. I think we're going to see him do a lot of damage with his legs this week against Cleveland.
Just Gary being a masochist for his own team. I can't tell if he's being more of a fanboy for Justin Fields or more, masochist about the Browns.
Like how I am with the Niners. Me and Gary are probably a lot alike.
100%.
Number 18 on Fantasy Pros, but I'm going to go with the guy under him at number 19. And actually, it's moved a little bit. He's moved down to 20 now on Fantasy Pros for quarterback this week. Give me Joe Burrow up against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has, where did it go? I just had it up and I lost it. Has the 4th worst pass defense in the NFL. They gave out 373 passing yards last week. They're giving up. I mean, Bogman, we laid it out earlier in the show. Joe Burrow is an easy play for me to come into QB1 this week. So that's my sleeper QB for the week.
Yeah, great. Mine is Daniel Jones against Atlanta. Atlanta's defense is poorish. They've already given up 8 touchdowns. Passing, they look terrible. Danny Dimes had extra rest because he played on Thursday. He actually looked competent against Washington, against a team with an actual pass rush. So let's go, Danny Dimes. Let's see it again.
95 rushing yards in that game against Washington, too.
That's right.
We'll
That's
take that,
right.
like 120. I think he's like third in the NFL quarterbacks rushing, which you just wouldn't have expected. All right, running backs. Your surprise running back 1 for week 3. So someone that jumps in as an RB1, Bogman. I'm going to just say this. I see the guy that you picked. He's a surprise running back. Anything. So go ahead.
James Robinson against the Cardinals. Look, the Cardinals' run defense is not good so far this year. And if they want to stay in this game at all against the Cardinals, they have to keep their defense on the sideline and rested so they can chase down Kyler Murray. So the strategy going into this game for Jacksonville should be run the ball. Trevor Lawrence has looked terrible. You have to hand that ball off more. If it's Robinson and Hyde, that's going to be annoying. Look, we saw Robinson outsnap Hyde 41-14 last week. So it seems like Robinson is back to getting his job full time here. So I'm going to say James Robinson. I actually didn't like a lot of the options today.
Yeah,
so
I agree with you on that.
for this week. I mean, so I'll go with James Robinson because the way the game script should be, it should be run the ball, keep Kyler Murray on the sideline.
I get the logic. It's a tough one to stomach. I mean, so get your
it.
Carlos Hyde shares in, I suppose. I'm actually staying in the same game, but I'm going to go with Chase Edmonds as a surprise running back 1 this week for all the same reasons. As bad as the Cardinals' run defense is, Jacksonville is 1 spot lower. They're 25th and 26th, respectively, in the NFL so far in rushing yards given up per game. And Chase Edmonds is the big play guy. Obviously, Connor has the ability getting into the red zone to take that. Murray more than anybody else. But I think this is some of that big play Chase Edmonds stuff. I think this can be the teens of carries with at least 1 or 2 big breakouts and some receptions as well. So give me Chase Edmonds as a surprise RB1. Gary, your surprise RB1 for the week.
I'm headed up to the Motor City. I'm going to go with Tyson Williams of the Baltimore Ravens. I think they get out to a big lead. Latavius Murray may murder my joy in this game. But I think Williams is going to go up over 120 total yards. I think he's going to catch 3 or 4 passes, and he is going to find the end zone.
Love that. So we're going to flip back around to you. Your surprise RB2 this week. So this is probably a guy that floats around like maybe flex or something like that, but he's going to jump in and be an RB2 for the week.
Now, everybody, the hot waiver wire pickup this week, Cordarrelle Patterson, that is going to be destroyed. Everyone is going to be distraught that they blew all their fab money because we're going to have a Mike Davis sighting this week against the New York Giants. He's going to carry the ball 20 times, 80, 90 yards, and again, find the end zone. Atlanta might actually be able to run the ball in this game because they're not going to be down 3 touchdowns 8 minutes in.
Bogman,
you stole mine, Gary. I mean, that is perfect.
Yes, gets it. Yes, gets it.
I mean, Mike Davis, that's perfect. Let's go.
I am going to go on, I think, a little bit of a riskier side here, but I'm going to go with a surprise RB. And I just want to caveat, Bogman, I agree. This is a tough week to like a lot of any of these.
It is,
especially
there's a lot of tough matchups and stuff.
So at running back, I feel like we are given a little bit more leeway in this, as Mike Davis has not even come close to scoring in the same capacity. So he is a surprise number RB2. Mine is kind of the same thing. And I'm going with Myles Gaskin. Because with Tua out, I think they're going to have to rely a little bit more. They've got to get the ball in his hands. I think he might be getting some receptions. I think he is your goal line back if they do actually move the ball. And they've, slowly been trying to, as much as they want to be that headed monster, I think Myles Gaskin, especially when you lose your quarterback, more than anything is going to be someone they are going to have to rely on. And the Raiders, as far as the defense goes, as far as for rushing, they're in the bottom 15, so they're right around the middle. I just think this is a prime Myles Gaskin game if people are kind of floating around on him. So give me Gaskin. Boggs, do you have anybody but Davis or not? You can move on to sleeper.
I mean, Davis is definitely my guy. I guess if I had to pick somebody else, it would probably be Jamal Williams. I just think that with Anthony Lynn just gushing about Jamal Williams, I think that it might behoove them to once again, your strategy should be keep Lamar on the sidelines, get your between the tackle guy out there.
And Swift is questionable right now.
Right. I mean, he's been questionable all 3 weeks, so I think he'll play. But, there's always a chance that he doesn't play. So Jamal Williams would be my other option, if not Mike Davis. But
sleeper running back for week 3. So this is a guy that you do not start on any normal weeks. You're throwing him in the lineup, deep play. Who do you got?
I like your strategy, Welsh. So I'm going to go with same team, different guy that you mentioned before. I'm going to go with James Conner. I'm going to hope that the Cardinals get down around the goal line. I mean, Kyler Murray has already seen his fair share of hits already. So let's give the ball to your big boy down there. Give it to James Conner and let Terminator score for you. That's what I want to see. Get some Terminator TDs this week. Let's go, James.
I'm going to go a little bit further down. I kind of thought this was going to happen in the last game, except this guy, Aaron Jones, just dominated every single thing. He was highly, highly used. Sleeper this week, I'm going to go with A.J. Dillon. And the 49ers have been giving up rush yards like crazy, especially in the second half. It's just a major problem that they're going to have to figure out. Jalen Hurts ate them up. The Eagles stopped running with Sanders and everybody in the second half, but Hurts was able to be successful. The 49ers got ran all over by Williams and by DeAndre Swift. But the problem is the 49ers got up in both these instances, so teams moved away. I don't think that's the case in this one. Green Bay is +4 or 3.5. I think Green Bay can take this one. 49ers offense has been, as good as Debo has been relatively putrid and has multiple drives where they just stutter, that I think the Packers can get in on this. They way overused Aaron Jones. I think you're going to get more Dillon, and if the Packers get up, you're going to get some A.J. Dillon. So I think you could potentially throw him in as a flex up against one of the 6 worst rushing defenses in the NFL as far as yards go. Gary, your sleeper RB for the week is?
I regret this pick before I make it because it is not a great matchup, but we saw last week from a team that there has been nothing to cheer about, nothing at all, that they have finally realized who their best running back is. I'm going to go with Michael Carter of the New York Jets. I think he'll do all right on the ground. I think in the second half, the Jets are going to be in catch-up mode. He's going to be out there for about 4 or 5 nice fourth quarter garbage time receptions that'll pump his score up a little bit. And maybe it's just because I have to start him in at least one league and I'm just hoping against hope. But Michael Carter, Jets, this is the week. Jets, Jets.
I like it. You talk yourself into it. You're like, well, I'm starting him, so he should do this. That's what we all do. I love that. All right, now wideouts. This, just like running backs, your surprise wide receiver 1 for the week. So someone not a typical wide receiver 1 that jumps in and produces as a W1 is?
I don't know that it will really be that big a surprise, but I'm going to go with Marvin Jones of the Jaguars. He's got a touchdown in each of the first 2 games. He has emerged as Trevor Lawrence's top target. The Arizona secondary is not great, and the Jaguars are going to be playing catch-up, so they're going to have to throw the ball. Give me Marvin Jones Jr.
I love that, Boggs.
I honestly, to peel the curtain back, I had him as my surprise wide receiver 2 because he's ranked so low on Fantasy Pros this week. So I'm going to have to go find a new one real quick.
If there's been 2 guys I've attached myself to this year, it was Debo and Marvin. So those 2 have been very good for me so far. I love that Marvin one. Boggs, I had said this last week in the show that this Bucs-Rams game is a wild one. And as good as the Rams defense can be, I mean, they're just falling apart last week. The Bucs are going to score, but Jalen Ramsey is a monster, and Jalen Ramsey is going to be lined up with Mike Evans. I'm going to assume, and I really liked Antonio Brown in this game, but he's got COVID. So I'm going to change. Give me Chris Godwin. Give me one of those guys. That's what I want to stick in the Bucs game. Whoever Jalen Ramsey is not on, and I'm assuming Ramsey is going to do a lot of shadowing of Mike Evans. So Chris Godwin as my wide receiver 1. A little cheaty, I suppose, but I don't think he's never in that top 12 wide receivers, and I think he's going to be significantly up in there.
For me, look, I'm going to go back to the well. We saw Teddy Bridgewater hit Cortland Sutton a bunch of times. Jerry Jeudy out last week. Cortland Sutton now looks like he is fully recovered from that knee surgery from last season. And they have the Jets, who have terrible corners. Who are the 2 corners for the Jets right now, Gary? It's Hall and who's the other one? Eccles?
Who cares? And I don't know.
Right. I mean, that's coming from the IDP guy right there.
Right.
So,
I have no idea.
Yeah, I think it's Hall and Eccles, and they're not great. So I think
Sounds
Cortland,
like a good 80s guitar acoustic band. Hall and Eccles.
They're the ones Hall and Oates beat them out. So Hall and Eccles. Right. But yeah, so Cortland Sutton for me fairly easy as a wide receiver 1.
All right. Moving into surprise wide receiver 2, Bogman. You had Marvin Jones, and you've changed it to
Tyler Boyd. Look, Tyler Boyd played at Pitt, so let's get him back in Pittsburgh to put up some big numbers at Heinz Field, his old home field advantage there. So give me Tyler Boyd. My exact same logic, but give it back to Jamar Chase. I already have
I got Joe Burrow as a surprise QB for the week. I'm a big Jamar Chase guy. T. Higgins is your safety options. I've kind of come down a little bit on Tyler Boyd. He got his little comeback. I think it's going to bounce back down, and it's Higgins and more Jamar Chase. So give me Jamar Chase as my surprise wide receiver 2 for the week. Surprise wide receiver 2, Gary, for you is?
I'm going to go to the Monday night game. The Philadelphia Eagles are going to have to throw the ball a little more than they would probably like to keep up with the high-powered Dallas Cowboys offense. He was down in week 2, but I think we'll see a return to his debut numbers. Give me Devonta Smith of the Philadelphia Eagles.
God, they targeted him. I think it was like 7 targets in the Niner game. They tried to they couldn't get any separation. All right, so last one is our sleeper wide receiver. So this is a guy not starting that you throw in there, deep play, deeper league, surprise wide receiver. Your sleeper wide receiver for the week is who, Gary?
Oh, I'm going deep. I'm going super duper deep. And Bogman should, I don't know if he's going to like this or hate it, because I don't expect Deontay Johnson to play this week. Give me James Washington of the Pittsburgh Steelers to catch a long touchdown pass, because that's the only kind of pass he ever catches against the Cincinnati Bengals.
I like that one. I honestly might like it more if stupid Mason Rudolph is playing, because they're old teammates at Oklahoma State. So, but yeah, I mean, he only runs the fly pattern. That's it. So he can run a curl if Mason's throwing him the ball. If anybody else throwing the ball, he only runs the fly. So
I'm going to go really, really deep here, and I mentioned his name before. Technically, I mean, it's a little bit rough because they obviously had Kansas City, but from a technical standpoint, Baltimore has given up the most passing yards of any team in the NFL right now. The Lions are not great, but they will be from behind, and they will continue to throw. You know who I love? Quintez Cephas. I really like Quintez Cephas. He's going to continue getting targets against a poorish pass defense in Baltimore. So, surprise sleeper, Quintez Cephas for me, Boggs. Who do you got?
I mean, look, for me, Bryan Edwards led the Raiders in snaps at wide receiver last week, and it seems like he might be settling in to that number 1 role. We know it's third and Renfro on third downs, and Waller's your number 1 option, right? But if teams are going to just start double, tripling Darren Waller because they peppered him with 19 targets week 1. You saw Pittsburgh do it last week. He still had his receptions late in the game, but Edwards is a guy they're going to early and often. He's the number 1 guy, and they have no running game right now. I mean, Peyton Barber, if Josh Jacobs misses again, which we're assuming he will, Peyton Barber is nothing. Even if Jacobs plays, it's not 100%. So I like Derek Carr to Bryan Edwards a lot this week.
I like that. Gary, what's going down? What should people be on the lookout for you for week 3? I mean, you're doing everything, but like, what can we hone in on?
Oh, I'll have a fantasy start-sit column publishing tomorrow, a Bleacher Report, IDP start-sit Friday at Fantasy Sharks. I've got stuff popping just about every day. Just follow me on Twitter at IDPSHARKS. I share it all there. I don't even want to name all the outfits that I work for because I'm afraid I'll leave one out, and I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Plus, they pay me, so I definitely don't want to hurt anyone's feelings.
That's right.
It's going to be like an Academy Award. Like you're just like, I got to thank the director and the producer and the associate producer.
And we're playing the light.
The red light. Yeah,
they're giving you the blinking light. Yeah.
All right. Well, you can also catch him on the IDP, the ITL IDP show, the Individual Defensive Podcast with Bogman and Gary Davenport. Make sure you subscribe to that for all your IDP stuff and follow him on Twitter at IDPSHARKS for everything that's going on. Gary, thanks for joining us on the hot seat here, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Oh, my pleasure.